Today we're talking about learning target 7, evaluating and solving radical equations given a formula for a real-world situation. Examples, if you have a copy of the notes, it is a little different on the screen than it is on your notes because I changed them this morning to add a couple layers to certain problems. So this first example, part A is what you have on your paper. The question part A, I added part B. All right, so the apples. The diameter of an apple is related to its weight and can be modeled by the formula D equals cube root of 3W, where D is the diameter, W is the weight in ounces. So part A, find the diameter, find D of an apple that weighs, W, that weighs 6.47. This problem just means plug in a 6.47 for W. So part A, all calculator work. D equals the cube root of 3 times 6.47. So, like I said, get your calculators earlier, out and ready to go. It's all about punching this in. So, give it a try and see what you get. We should get 2.68 blah, blah, blah. All right, so rounding it to 2 decimals or 1 decimal, that's pretty appropriate. We're going to go with 1 on this one. So round it to 2.7. If you have an issue with typing these in, let me know after the notes. We'll look at what you were typing and whatnot. We definitely will have an issue in the second problem that we'll talk about. Okay? Not this part B, but the next question on the next slide. Part B, find the weight of an apple with the diameter 3.2. You don't have that on your notes. I added that this morning. So this part B is asking us a different question. It's giving us different information. So we take that 3.2 and plug it in for D. So 3.2 equals the cube root of 3W. So basically this is a problem from yesterday. Solve for W. Is the radical isolated? Sure is. So what do you do to both sides? Cube it. You got it. Cube it. Cube the right side and cube the left side. On the right, we get 3W. On the left, we get 32.768. Is that right? 32.768. Divide by 3. And we get 10.9, what was it, 926? All right, so we'll just choose to go with 10.9. Rounding it to 1 decimal, 10.9. Now, units-wise, let's see. The weight was ounces, so that would be ounces. The diameter was in inches, so that would be inches. What do you think? Pretty straightforward, right? Here's the way I see these problems is here's a word problem. Blah, 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 blah. Here's a formula and some variables. And then it goes on to tell you this variable means this variable means that. And then they'll usually give you the numbers to plug in. That's the way these come down to, okay, for the most part. So let's take a look at number 2. It's a little different than yours. Not a whole lot, but just a little. The basketball, a woman's regulation size basketball, slightly smaller than a men's basketball. The radius R of the ball that holds V cubic units of air is 3V over 4 pi to the 1/3. How much bigger, and this is where it's different than your notes, how much bigger is the radius of a men's basketball than the radius of a women's basketball? Your question said find the radius of a men's basketball, find the radius of a women's basketball. What's different? Exactly. You just got to subtract at the end. You still have to do the 2 things that are in your notes, but you have to, in the end, compare which one's bigger by subtracting. So this is where the calculator, I think, is going to get some of us. Some of us, when we plug this problem in, we're going to get different answers. So let's start by writing what we're going to type in, and then let's try it. For the men's basketball, the R is 3 times V, so 3 times 455 divided by 4 pi, all to the 1/3 power. The women's basketball, according to the formula, will be 3 times 413. According to the diagram, 413 cubic inches is the volume over 4 pi to the 1/3. Now we do need to try these ourselves in the calculator because I'm fairly certain we'll get two answers for the men's basketball radius. One of those will be, for the men's, one of them will be 4.77 and another will be 10.23. So type it in yourself, see what you get. I'll see if I can get the calculator to pull up so we can do this on screen. I know this is where I need a little more experience with this software. Don't know why it will not let me pull that up. Yeah, it won't even let me right click off of it. Let's don't know why it's doing this. Nope. All right. We tried long enough. We'll just have to talk through this. Unfortunately, people that are listening to the video will have to really listen carefully. I'm going to show you guys using the document camera here. When you're typing in the men's basketball, you probably did something like this. Parentheses, 3 times 455. Then you hit the division button, and you hit 4 pi, closed your parentheses, hit the exponent, and typed in 1/3 in the exponent. This is a very intuitive, button progression, but it's not correct because the calculator will follow its order of operations. And the way that this is written on the screen here is 3 times 455 divided by 4 pi. It's going to divide by 4 and then multiply by pi. Is that what we want it to do, or do we want it to divide by both of those numbers, 4 pi? Okay, so we need to change what we're typing in. Personally, I wouldn't want to type this all in at once. I would do 3 times 455, enter. Then I would hit divided by parentheses 4 pi, close parentheses. And then I would hit exponent 1/3. The right answer is 4.77. If you're going to type it all in one big step, you just have to put an extra parentheses around that 4 pi to trap it in the denominator. Okay? All right, so we'll go back to the screen and put our answer in. 4.77 inches. All right, now you try the next one. Make sure you're using another set of parentheses around that 4 pi if you're going to try to type it all in at once. It'll be close to the same answer. So if you don't get something close to 4 or 5, check what you've typed in. I'm getting 4.62. 4.62? Okay. We'll go back off screen. If you're trying to type this all in at once, you need to open a parentheses, hit 3 times 413, hit the division bar, and then open another parentheses, 4 pi, close the parentheses that's trapping the 4 pi, close the parentheses that's trapping the whole fraction, then hit your exponent button and put 1/3 in your exponent. 1 divided by 3. I always put parentheses around my fractions, so that's just habit. And that will give you the answer 4.62 in one step. I still don't do that, though. I don't try to type that all in with all those parentheses. Personally, I just do 3 times 413, enter. Divided by parentheses, 4 pi, enter. Then I hit the exponent button, 1/3. And essentially, I'm following the order of operations and telling my calculator to follow it with me. And you get 4.62. All right, we'll finish this up a lot faster. That was just something that I wanted to make sure we talked about, because just because you type it in the calculator doesn't mean it's going to give you the right answer, because you still have to be careful as you're typing to type it in right. So we get 4.62. So the answer to this question, how much bigger is the men's radius versus the women's radius? Take your 4.72 and your 4.77 and subtract. 4.77 minus 4.62, and you get about 0.15 inches bigger. So really, the radius isn't that much bigger. So the diameter would be how much bigger? 0.3. Good. Last question. All right, this one has a multiple. I did not change this one. Your notes are the exact same. But it does have a layered response. First, we have a relationship between length and mass of certain fish approximated by the equation L equals 0.46 cube roots of m, where L is the length, makes sense, and m is the mass. Solve this equation for m. That's the first task. Then find the approximate mass for a fish that's a ½ meter long and another that's 1 meter long. So there's 3 things we have to do. First, let's talk about solving for m. You see the L equals 0.46 cube roots of m? The way that we would say that in math would be that's L in terms of m. That's L in terms of m. Which means this equation is set up to plug in what numbers? It's easier to plug in for which one? To plug in for m here. Because all you do is take 0.46 times the cube root, right? If you plug in for L, then you'd have to do some solving, right? So when you're solving for this equation for m, as the directions say here, you're rewriting this equation as m in terms of L. So you're basically switching the domain and range of what you would want to plug in for. All right, so let's do that. How would you solve for m? You need to get it out from underneath the cube root, but you also need to get rid of the 0.46. Exactly. Divide by 0.46 to both sides. So you get a fraction, L over 0.46 equals the cube root of m. And then to get the m out of the cube root, you would cube both sides. Exactly. Cube both sides. So the fraction, L over 0.46 cubed equals m. That's part 1. Part 2, find the appropriate mass of a fish that's a ½ meter long. ½ meter long, that's a number for m, right? So would you use the original equation or the one we just wrote to plug in for L? The one we just wrote is more convenient, isn't it? So when you plug in a half for a ½ meter fish, you're going to take the L over 0.46 cubed and plug in the length 1/2. So plug in a 0.5. Oh, sorry, not 6 power. Cubed. So calculator work, find that number. For a 1 meter fish, we're going to take the same formula over here, L over 0.46 cubed, and plug in a 1. All right, calculators are going. I hear them going. What does the ½ meter become? What is the mass? 1 point what? 1.28. And the problem says that's kilograms, so kg. And the 1 meter fish? 10.27 kilograms. And that is learning target 7. Will it have some variations? Sure. I mean, there's a question in your homework that has area of a triangle. It's going to have some different things in word problems, but the principle is usually, here's a formula, here's the numbers for some of that formula, plug them in, and find the other stuff in the formula. Okay? All right, we'll finish the recording. That big